Hello, this is Tytti, an associate trainer for Art2Ride. I will be going through a lunging session I had recently with our Finn horse Pöly here. Pöly is an 8-year-old Finn horse gelding. He came to us about 2.5 years ago. Since then, we have been training him according to Art2Ride foundation training. He has come a really long way by now, and his top line is getting just stronger and stronger. Will was here also to give a clinic in the end of May this year, and he advised us to start using side reins far more regularly in our work. So this is so that he will start to reach more into the contact when we are lunging and accepting the bit in a better way on the lunge. So here I don't have the side reins yet on, but they are ready to go on after I've done some work without them to get him warmed up properly. I did a session of in-hand work before the lunging you see here. The in-hand session was also filmed, and I have made a voiceover of it on it as well, so you can see it in a separate video. So you see me starting here with some walk work with Pöly. I tend to stay close to him when asking for walk work on the lunge, because he's one of those horses who will not work efficiently in walk if I'm not close to him and really ask him to activate himself. If I am further away from him, he just basically stops working and just lumbers on without really working actively over his whole top line. But if I stay close to him like this, I get him working optimally quite quickly. So you can also see him quite often stretching only about knee height and more rarely all the way to the ground. Now he has had almost 2.5 years of consistent foundation training without any major physical problems, bar the problems with his mouth in the beginning. So he has gained a lot of strength across his top line, and he doesn't actually need to stretch all the way to the ground anymore to get his top line activated. Although the lower he stretches, the better he will activate his top line. So that is still preferable, that he will get all the way to the ground, so to say, with every session that I have, so that he will get his top line activated to the maximum. So as you can see here in the trot work, he works a lot better from a distance. So he's always worked better in trot, actually. The walk work has always been more difficult for him. So he stretches far more consistently to the ground in trot, and he has always done that. Although the same as it with walk work, he doesn't need to stretch all the way ground anymore to work through his body in a trot as well. As you can see here in the beginning there was also times when he's just about knee height, like here, and he's still working through his body pretty well. And he's at the point now when that he's in balance between his hind legs and his front end, so that he can start coming up with his head without losing the quality of work you see here. So that's what we also have been starting to train, is that I'm starting to ask him to move actively on and with a slightly higher head carriage, so that he starts to build up the muscles along the top of his neck as well. So we're starting to train his neck these days. And here you see a little bit of canter, and it's coming along pretty well as well. You can see that he's drawing his neck in a little bit. He's stiffening against the canter, so this was not really the best canter from him, but it was the first canter of the session, and it was okay. It wasn't perfect by all means, and indeed you could see him drawing his neck in instead of really lengthening it forward. So he wasn't completely working through his body there through that canter. And now you can see him stretching here a little bit extra. He's obviously feeling a little bit stiff, so he wants to kind of release all that stiffness. And here you see me taking him into a smaller circle and asking him to yield a little bit so that he will start working a bit better. So I'm taking him into a smaller circle, just shortening the lunge line and staying put myself a little bit more. And I'm asking him to yield with his hind legs a little bit outwards. It's like semi shoulder fore in the lunge line. And as you saw, that it started to work. He was at first resisting and trying to just overbend his neck and not really do what I asked. But the moment he was giving in and starting to flex laterally and step more under better, then I released him into in a bigger circle, as you can see here again. And then I ask again for canter and see if it's improved. And here you see this is a lot better canter. So he's starting to stretch more forward with his head and neck, and not just draw it in. And here he just came back to trot without me asking, so that's why I'm asking him to get back on it, and I'm just running with him so that he keeps his canter. So this was not the best end for the canter, but I just wanted to keep him going until I told him that it's okay, now I want you to trot. And the trot is improving with the canter especially, and he starts to become quite light in my hand, so to say. So you can feel the difference also in the lunge line. The more he's starting to carry himself and starting to bend more on the circle, the lighter he feels in my hand. So now he doesn't anymore kind of stretch his neck overly down and out, but he's just being quite relaxed about it and just carries on with nice activity there. Okay, so here we go again, a second small circle work from me, and you can see that he's already accepting it better. He can do it easier. He doesn't complain anymore. As you can see, he didn't do what he did the first time, and you can see that he was just gently doing a smaller circle, and I recognized that he was moving better. He did not complain or anything, so this is why I just came back to the bigger circle, and now I'm stopping to put the side reins on. So here starts the harder work for you, and you can see that it also started raining. It's been raining quite a lot recently, and this is just I thought we were gonna skip the rain that day when we were filming, but no. So we had quite some rain afterwards, but we managed to work through it, so that's okay. It wasn't that much that we couldn't work well with it. Okay, so I get ready to continue the work with the side reins, and this time I clip the lunge line straight on the inside bit ring now that I have side reins. Before that, it goes over the pole with Pöly. He works really well actually with the line over the pole. He hasn't always worked this well with the line over the pole, but and I have had it quite often just straight on the inside bit ring, but his bit tends to move through his mouth, so it's far better for me to put it over the pole, even though sometimes it gives a little bit of a slow release of the pressure, but it still works really well. And you can see that the side reins I have here are relatively short. This is because he's come that far in his training that he can deal with this type of with this length of side reins. I think last year this time he would not have been able to cope with this this, so to say, short side reins. He would have just curled up and drawn his neck in and just lost the connection between his hind legs and his front end. So, but now that he has had a lot of more muscles coming in the past year, he can actually cope with this, and he can work with it, as you can start to see here. He's still he still needs to get used to this length and get used to more of this kind of harder work for him, because this is definitely a lot harder work with the side reins like this. We still have the side reins attached quite low. As you can see, they're even lower than the last rings here. And that is to make it a little bit easier for him. So the higher you attach the side reins, the harder the work gets for the horse. So in the end, you would have them right on the top, as if when you're riding, where your hands would be. And that's the hardest level, basically, with your side reins. So you start quite low and you go slowly upwards. And here you can see me asking for a little bit of a smaller circle as well for one turn. And he's coping pretty well. You can see that he's not reaching into the contact all the time, but he's also not going behind the bit or behind the vertical either. So that's really good from him. And you can see that he's not bending as nicely as he would without the side reins, and that also tells that it is a lot harder work for him to keep that slightly higher rein and to reach into this contact. Here I ask a little bit of a canter, just to see how it goes. I tend not to canter very much with these side reins, because as you can see, especially the inside rein tends to kind of start whisking a little bit there, and it's a bit disturbing for Pöly as well. I think I have to either just clip out those donuts that are there, because they seem to be quite heavy, and he's a bit sensitive with his mouth, so I think I need to either get a new set of side reins that are lighter, or get rid of those donuts and use something else there. But he's still tolerating this, and it's not too disturbing. But as I said last year, this time he would not been able to look like this at all with these kind of side reins. So this is a huge improvement. And here actually I did not ask for canter. I just asked a little bit more work out of him, and he just decided like, well, maybe I just canter then. And as you can see, he's looking a little bit outside every now and then, so he's not bending that well on the circle with these. So that really tells me that it is hard work for him. So I decided to just stop here, because he has been working really nicely. I think he hasn't curled up at all, and he has been very nice and forward. So I decide like, okay, I'm gonna change reins. He gets a little bit of piece of a carrot, and I decide like, okay, we'll just continue with the side reins straight on this rein, on the left rein, and just see how it goes. I can always take the side reins off if I'm not happy that he can cope with them during this session straight on. But as you can see, he's working pretty nicely in the walk, and the same thing as on the other rein, I stay very close to him, just so that I can ask him to really move well in the walk. There he just wanted to trot, and I just asked him back to walk. And then he gave me a nice walk, and I decided like, okay, now you can trot. And so we trot on and see how it goes. His left side is always a little bit more difficult, because he is stiffer and slightly shorter on his right side. So meaning that when he's working on the left side, he needs to stretch that right side of him, which is a little bit stiffer. And this is why he has more trouble. And I usually quite often start on the right side so that he's totally warmed up when we get to his slightly harder side, so to say, so that he has easier time of it. And here you see me at first just keeping him in a really big circle. I just want him to just relax into it and not really asking too much for the first couple of rounds from him. I'm just observing how he's moving and keeping him going and seeing if he gets annoyed or how does he feel with the side reins. And here I'm asking just a little bit more effort from him, and he just he's finding it a bit harder, so he's going itsy bitsy behind the vertical every now and then, and he wants to draw his neck in, and sometimes he feels like he's going to curl on me, but it's not too bad actually here. So he's working really well, considering it's his harder side, and that we have just the side reins on immediately on this side. So there's really some nice stretching, and he's he's moving on quite well. And just then I asked there's a little bit of canter so that maybe he will loosen up a little bit better. And the canter is pretty good actually. His left canter is always been a little bit better than the right canter as well. But still it is a lot harder with the side reins on. So I just keep it very short, just to get him working maybe a little bit more forward, that is to getting him stepping under better from behind, that he will loosen up and be a little bit more open with his movement. And the canter tends to help him a lot. So he's a horse that it's a good idea to canter him every now and then. And here you see me asking for that smaller circle again, and he's finding it difficult. And without the side reins, he very easily also wants to escape through his outside shoulder there. But you can see that the side reins are basically preventing it from happening here. And he wants to tilt his head rather than really start to bend, because it's so difficult for him to stretch that right side. So this is his avoidance mechanism basically. But you can see me asking there quite a lot, like, hey, move your hind legs, yield a little bit for me, and then you can get on a bigger circle, that is. And here we are already on a bigger circle. And I'm just trying to ask him to get out of the curl. So here he was curling a little bit behind the bit, and I'm just asking him to move on and start to reach more forward with his head so that he gets into the contact. So here, this is what I'm asking all the time here. Just like move on and step better under, be a bit more forward, and reach out. So that's the only thing I'm concentrating here, is to get him out of the curl and just get his neck going forward. So this is the most difficult thing with him and the side reins, that I will want him to reach forward, and especially on the left rein. As you noticed, the right rein was a lot easier in this aspect as well. But I'm just letting him have a large circle here, and just waiting and keeping him going to it, and just leaving him to it and see if it happens or not. And you can see here he's shortened his neck and he's kind of avoiding stuff. And I thought, like, well, you can canter if you want a little bit. Maybe that will help. And that canter is already looking a lot better, although you can still see that he's a little bit drawing his neck in. But after that, that's a lot better trot. I mean, look at that. That's a lot better. Now he's starting to release his neck forward and out, rather than starting to kind of draw it in and curl over a bit. So this is a lot better. And you can see the change also in the hind legs and the overall movement. It's flowing a lot better, and there's a far better rhythm. It looks a lot more relaxed. Although he tends to come back to the curl, like here again. So it's just a balancing act for me, keeping on noticing this and asking him to move into the contact and just stretch forward. So here I've done a little bit of a smaller circle and asking him to step under better and see if it helps. And there we go again. Now he's stretching again forward as I wanted him to. It's kind of fleeting moments on the left side during this session. So he's going from really optimal work into slightly suboptimal. And it's just a very subtle difference of him not using his neck optimally and then using it. And it just makes that bit of a difference in the overall work and how he performs through all of his top line muscle. So it is a lot of fine tuning and a lot of correction, but here you can see how that's looking really, really nice. He's going stretching into the contact very nicely. I'm sure, yes, I was gonna say, I'm sure I stopped there because he gave me such nice work for the whole circle, and he really released himself very nicely. And then I still decided to just work a little while longer, but without the side reins. So I just took off the side reins there and thought that, okay, just 5 minutes more, just so that he can stretch as much as he like, and just, as you can see here, he's really enjoying his stretch and just pushes his head and neck as low as possible to just stretch himself. And I stopped here because I realized that I had clipped the lunge line straight into the inside bit ring. I forgot to move it over his pole, so that's what I'm doing now. And this is because if he opens his mouth at all, the bit just goes through his mouth, and that's obviously not good. So this is what I'm doing here, just putting the lunge line over his pole so that the bit will stay centered in his mouth. And then I'm starting all over again, and I just let him trot on pretty much straight away. And he's here a little bit chewing his bit and not quite working optimally, even though he does stretch like here pretty nicely, but he's a little bit well, I think this is reaction to the work, the harder work that we just had with the side reins, that he feels the need to really push his neck out a little bit, and occasionally he's twisting his head, like maybe you saw there, just a split second when he's twisting his neck a little bit and his head inwards instead of just bending with his whole body. And he tends to sometimes also escape through his outside shoulder, but he's starting to get pretty nice here, although he's still chewing, working his bit a little bit more than necessary. So I'm starting here to work, to ask a little bit of canter from him, just to get him moving a bit better. I just want to give him a little bit of a canter so he can release his body a little bit better. So here the canter is pretty okay, but as you can see, he's escaping through his outside shoulder a bit and just twisting his neck inwards. Like here, you can see it pretty well. So it's just his reaction to the harder work before, and this is why I wanted to just give him time without the side reins as well, so that he can just stretch on as much as he likes and doesn't feel the restriction of the side reins, and just gets a little bit of a easier workout in the end still. And I think I'm asking a bit more, I'm asking a bit more canter there. That's why he was just thinking of escaping the work altogether and just bending his neck. But he's starting to get it better here. And he's starting to stretch quite nicely. But again, he's tending to bend his neck here a little bit too much inwards at times. It's not too bad altogether. It's pretty good. Nice energy. I need to run with him a little bit to keep him moving on with activity there. Just push him on. It's also, as you have probably seen from the screen, it's still raining, so it's been raining all along. At sometimes more rain than others, and that also obviously affects his work a little. But now he's moving real nice, really nicely covering the ground. But he still tends to snake with his head a little bit and neck there, just bending a bit too much in and then flowing out a little bit too much through his outside shoulder. But I thought that was enough work for him for today. So that's the end of our lunging session today, and hope you enjoyed this and hope it was informative for you. Bye.